My name is Marcy. I've been living since 2004 on Kea, also known as Tia. In the wake of the economic crisis, we were left with the cement skeletons of nearly 500 holiday homes, homes that will most likely never be finished. Small and large building contractors took no time at all to assess their losses and abandon projects that would now be impossible to cash in on. I spent a certain amount of time being pretty upset and angry that I would have to look at these for the rest of my life, but soon realized that the best way to prevent further abuses to Kea's oak forest would be to create sustainable income from the trees themselves so that farmers could benefit in this way rather than the fickle building industry. Lack of town planning has adversely affected the Greek countryside, and effective environmental protection and laws are long overdue. Rather than sustainably and imaginatively utilizing the many diverse resources the Greek countryside offers, we inevitably depend on building our way to new prosperity. On Kea, there has not been any planning whatsoever, just like the rest of Greece. Realizing that this crisis could be an opportunity, could be a catalyst for positive change, I decided to begin sharing what I had learned about acorns. I began teaching local residents about eating acorns, velanidia, and later with my husband found leather tanneries to buy the acorn caps, takipala, what we call hamada on Kea. The hamada harvest was a key factor in the Kean economy from the early 1800s to the mid-1960s. Thousands of tons of acorn caps were exported annually. This source of income came to an abrupt halt when cheaper chemical alternatives hit the market in the mid-1960s. Quercus aegilops, which yields these giant acorn caps and is only found in the Mediterranean region, is considered still the very best vegetable tanning agent and is used still to today by leather tanneries specializing in luxury quality leather for high-end shoe soles and bookbinding. Most people ask me, as soon as they've heard me go on a little bit about acorns, is how I know so much about them. My childhood home was built at the foot of two very large old sheltering oaks. And when I was about 10 years old, I learned that the American Indians regarded the acorn as a staple food. And later that David Thoreau was a big fan of eating acorns when he lived on Walden Pond. I spent a certain amount of time in the 6th grade trying to bake palatable acorn bread from the acorns in my garden. But I was not very successful, and I didn't have any guidance, so I soon gave up. Many, many years later, when I first visited Kea and I learned of the ancient oak forest, I remembered my childhood experiment and began again where I'd left off. This time I had the internet for research, for acorn research, and I quickly found Dr. David Bainbridge of UC Davis, who is an expert in the viability of harvesting acorns. He encouraged my interest and my efforts, stressing especially that protecting the trees on Kea would also be beneficial for soil erosion, which is always a problem in drought-ridden Greece and California. I began to realize, the more research I did, that the acorns actually might make a difference, that they might help save the oak forest on Kea, which is in severe danger, is in danger of severe degradation and even extinction. Many Aegean islands are noted in ancient texts as having rich oak forests at higher elevations. But none of these forests exist today except on Kea, a warning that I didn't want to ignore, especially as fuel prices rise and more trees are cut down for firewood. I've honed the process, the acorn processing down to a few steps, and it quickly became apparent that the biggest obstacle, besides the fact that I didn't have any money, was going to be getting the shells off large quantities of acorns. In the beginning, we were doing it with a hammer, one by one. So I decided to try the Kickstarter crowdfunding platform, and I was successful, and we were able to import a giant acorn huller from central Turkey. This huller takes the shells off of 1 ton of acorns in about 30 minutes. So now we're able to offer hulling services to farmers on site for a small percentage of acorn that I use for my flour production. And farmers are now able to feed their animals with acorns now that the harmful shells have been removed. Crowdfunding, that's something that a lot of Greeks don't know about yet. Crowdfunding is a very, very new way of getting startup money. Crowdfunding is not charity. When you back a project, you not only help for a creative idea to turn into a reality, you receive a reward made for or from the project. So you become an integral part of the project, which is really community on a whole new scale. People say it's so much work, gathering, drying, leaching, and milling acorns. But compared to the months of work involved in planting, sowing, spraying, milling wheat, it's at least as easy, it seems at least as easy, and it's far more communal. Dr. Bainbridge estimated that a village of 2,500 people can collect enough acorns in a 1-month period to sustain themselves for 2 years. And we have confirmed these estimates. Families could now have guaranteed food for themselves with gathering and processing skills that even young children and older people can help with. In my quest to get people eating acorns, I realized that I'd have to make something pretty tasty. It was very difficult to get locals, or even my family for that matter, to try my acorn experiments, until the acorn cookies were born. You've all got acorn cookies, I hope, and if you don't, I think there's some extra ones in the lobby. These cookies have been my little ambassadors. Actually, I recommend you have them with coffee or tea. They're even better. But anyway, these cookies have been my little ambassadors, spreading the word that acorns taste fabulous and give you high levels of energy due to their high protein. Acorns are high in bitter tannin, but this can easily be removed much the same way the bitterness is removed from olives in fresh water over a week's time. You're all distracted. Stop looking at your cookies. So, the magic of this project has been that it quickly took on a life of its own. I put a site up called I Love Acorns a few years ago, and it's allowed people from all over the world to get in contact and share oak knowledge. The level of positive response that I got really has surprised me, but my mother says I shouldn't be surprised. Acorns make people smile. Of course, there were those in the local community that were very suspicious when I first started sharing what I knew about acorns. But as soon as we arranged for the first export of 12 tons of acorn caps, farmers began to believe that the trees might be worth more than firewood. And older people really encouraged us with their stories of the Hamada harvest of their youth. And then soon, on the square, acorns and acorn caps were a really hot topic. The return of the acorn harvest has only really been possible since the crisis. People are now more open to non-building forms of income. German tanneries pay 50 cents per kilo. So I tell gatherers to think of them as 1 and 2 cent coins to be gathered from under the trees. I can gather about 100 kilos in a 5-6 hour day with a couple of breaks. 50 euros for a 5-hour workday is not bad in today's Greek economy. And it didn't take progressive thinking farm families long to get out gathering. Our youngest gatherer this year was 17 and our oldest was 87. There are over 500 types of oaks around the world on all continents except the polar regions. The work I've done with acorn flour has attracted attention from a researcher at UC Santa Cruz, as well as universities in Europe and in Greece. TEI, the food department at TEI Thessaloniki, is currently doing a full analysis on our acorn flour, and I'm pretty confident that it will have high levels of protein like all other acorns do. I have tried to find the opportunity and the courage to create through breast cancer, multiple sclerosis, which has left me blind twice for 10 weeks each time, prosopagnosia, at least 5 autoimmune diseases, and a rare birth defect, which caused my brain to herniate out the back of my head and wreaks all kinds of havoc on my central nervous system. This is a self-portrait that I made. Those are both me. Just about the time I was going through chemotherapy, and coincidentally, the same time I became a Greek citizen. I don't like talking about my health issues. I find the whole subject extremely boring. I found that the key to facing each setback has been adaptability and acceptance. Every experience has something to teach, and I've searched for the lesson rather than dwell on the difficulty. I'd like to show you a video of what we're doing with acorns. We have accomplished quite a lot in the year since I launched the first project in May 2011. We have a lot more that we'd like to do, which I'm hoping our current project will make possible. we have a choice to face now. Do we continue allowing individuals and companies to build infrastructure, and often abandoned infrastructure, that is in direct conflict with natural resources and future well-being? Or do we finally get ourselves, as Schedule Horotaxias, plan balanced and sustainable uses for land? My husband and I run a guest house, farm, cannery, and several vineyards on Kea, and we host volunteers from all over the world year-round. Volunteers, we've become familiar with this alternative universe of young people that have chosen to travel, work, learn, and explore through exchanging part-time work for food and accommodation. Volunteers have really given me optimism for the future in their willingness and hunger to learn and to share. And they've also reminded me of what an amazing place Greece is when I see it through their eyes. We have incredible natural resources here, but without a Schedule Horotaxias, we're not going to be able to take advantage of them the way we could. One thing I've learned in Greece is that no never really means no. Αποκλείεται, αδύνατον, δεν γίνεται, δεν προβλέπεται, και όχι. I have heard these expressions and many more throughout my 28 years in Greece. And I've come to understand that no means, it could mean maybe, it could mean later, it could mean if he does it first. Most of all, it means I don't even have the energy to think about what I'm going to have to do to make this happen. And this is something we really need to work on. We need to start looking at problems in terms of solutions and opportunities. And we need to look around ourselves and see what we can do to change our surroundings. We also need to collaborate and cooperate rather than compete. I'd like to leave you with two very short last thoughts. There are no mistakes, only experiences. And when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Thank you very much.